Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend.
Welcome to episode 63 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. Today we're going to try and do something a little bit different. Last week we reached out to those affected by the lockdown and invited them onto the podcast. And I'm happy to say that today we've got a couple of guys coming on. Today we'll discuss the lockdown. We'll take your questions on Twitter, reflect on the Phil Hodgkinson interview of last week, the current financial situation around football, reflect on some happy memories of Ian Dunn, who turned 50, and ask Kosi why he sparked so much outrage with his player of the season so far vote on Sky Sports. So let's hear some music.
Moves in, Jepson's there, Billy in, the goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. Like on a Rob Edwards, what a goal for Rob Edwards. Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Huddersfield got the chance with Clark to knock it through. This could be a chance to equalise, and they have equalised. And you know who scored it, don't you? It's Jordan Rhodes.
He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the flame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Payne's got a chance. Payne scores. Jack Payne scores. Polita gives it straight to Moy again, who shoots. What a goal, Aaron Moy! An absolute thunderbolt delivered all the way from Australia. Oh, where's he going to drop it? But it's in there! Like Kachunga leaves it. Smith scores for Huddersfield Town. 3-2 Town. 4-3 Town it stands. Forrest Sherry. Danny Ward saves. Danny Ward saves! Play down the left and Moy stayed onside. Here's Mounier! 2-0 Huddersfield Town on the opening day of the Premier League. De Quattro's in, Brand De Gea! 2-0 Huddersfield Town! Going to turn it into the pass. Yes! And Clement scored! Clement has scored one of the most important goals of Huddersfield Town's history. De Quattro's forward, De Quattro's got the better. Yes! And Laurent De Quattro scores! Laurent De Quattro scores! Has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Okay, so as usual, this episode is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Sadly, at the moment, Magic Rock is closed due to the coronavirus outbreak, but the Welcome Centre, who are very close to what Magic Rock do, are still open. And if you've got a little bit of spare money hanging around at the minute, they are taking a couple of donations for people who are struggling at the moment. So have a check of the HTSA website and social media, as well as the Cowshed Loyal, and if you can help out, that'd be fantastic, and hopefully we'll come out of this quite soon. Right, good evening, everybody. It's nice to have some new faces on the show. So a particular warm welcome to Freddie, Andy, and Graham, who join us for the first time. So what's usually good to do, guys, is the first time you come on the podcast, what we like to do is like to find out a little bit more about you, what got you into supporting Huddersfield, why you support Huddersfield, who took you there, your favourite memories, maybe a little bit of blast from the past, and especially living in London for Freddie and Graham, why you support Huddersfield Town when it's probably easier to pick up one of those teams down there. So we'll start with Andy. Andy, what got you into supporting Huddersfield, and especially living in Barnsley, I think? Are you from Huddersfield originally, or?
Originally from Murfield. So I was born 3 miles away from Leeds Road, so I guess I couldn't go anywhere else. I was taken when I was 5 or 6 years old, apparently, to watch Town play Leicester, because according to my uncle, I quite liked Peter Shilton, so he took me along to Huddersfield Leicester game, and it just went from there. Local club, all that type of stuff. I'll be honest, from about 17, 18 up until probably 5 or 6 years ago, I didn't go that much because I was a sport bully, played football, played cricket, so I didn't really have the time. But they've always been my club. So yeah, that's why I follow Town really.
And any sort of standout memories, favourite players, things like that? Peter Shilton was one of my early heroes when I started playing as well, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But I think he was 41, I think, when I first started liking him. But what sort of memories do you have? Your favourites? Craig Maskell was probably my first ever favourite. You probably remember him. But what about you? How?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So I'm going. Mally Brown was my biggest favourite. I was a rubbish right back when I played, so I always loved him and his stuff down the wing. Ian Robbins, Stevie Kindon, people like that. I'm not so good on dates and things, but I think that side that went up that beat Newport, the Mellor singing from Cowshed, that's a memory. Just Leeds Road, I'd give anything to be able to take my little lad back just for one game at Leeds Road, so we can see how lucky he is where he sits at the John Smiths now, and just to savour that atmosphere and the smells and the sounds and stuff. It was a magical place to go, even if it did smell awful.
Not to get too sidetracked, but I remember the first time I went down the Cowshed when I was quite young. And it was the sun always used to beat across the grass, so the grass always used to glisten as you walk down the steps. They'd have perfect lines, light green, dark green, light green, dark green. Yeah. And that was one of my favourites. As you used to just walk down, and it just looked perfect, like a bowling green. The rest of it maybe not so much, but the grass, the pitch itself was excellent, wasn't it, at the time? Yeah. That was one of my favourites. But we'll move on to Graham down there from London. Graham, how did you get into? How did you see the light? Really?
No, I'm from Meltham originally.
Okay.
Moved down here for work a couple of years ago. I think earliest memories. I remember having a top when I was about 4 or 5 years old with Smith on the back. So that'd be like 2000, 2001. Can't think of the actual player.
With Martin Smith, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So that's my first memory of it. Trying to think of other good memories. I remember Joe Lynch against Watford, the overhead kick.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good one. Staying up, that game against Barnsley, the draw. I remember doing the conga through the town after that. And then Newcastle game. That was probably my favourite one, I think. Second game of the Premier League, that Aaron Moy goal. That was probably one of my favourites, yeah.
First ever win at home. And last but not least, Freddie. So, you see my research has gone slightly awry with Andy and Graham there. But you are a sort of an East London boy, aren't you, before you tell me that you're from Longwood or something. So you got into supporting Town through, was it your parents?
Yes. So I was born and bred in East London, born in Leytonstone, moved to Southwood when I was about 5. And my dad's originally from Murfield, born in Murfield, grew up in Dewsbury, went to boarding school and then came down to London for work, met my mum, and the rest is sort of history. So my first ever Town game was Birmingham City at home, and we got relegated in 1999-2000.
Nice.
So I was 5, 6 years old. Apparently I missed the entirety of the second half with a stomachache, and I didn't see any of it. And my dad had to pick me up and sort of carry me all the way to where the canal side is, where we used to park. So that was, I mean, if you wanted a kind of start to Town life, then that's pretty much it, to be honest. But we did go. Over the years, we've been to so many games. I mean, it's been one of the greatest treasures of my life, really. Sort of going to the games with my dad. He used to sort of take me out of school sometimes to the big games. So I remember the playoffs against Lincoln. He took me out of school for like 2 days to go up north to stay over. And I remember it was the second leg, and we couldn't get tickets for the away leg. And I remember they scored twice in the first half. I remember being so upset that I thought we were going to lose, that I was just crying. I was just crying in the stands. My dad had to like console me, saying, "It's just a game, don't worry. Like, it's just a game, don't worry, we'll be fine, don't worry." And obviously that night was pretty magical. And I mean, for me, that's the loudest I've ever heard the stadium, akin to the goal that we scored, the second goal for against Man United. So yeah, just memories like that. I remember the Northampton away game when we won 1-0. The first game we went to, it was called off because of the wind. And that was...
Interesting story. It's a mate of mine a mate of mine called Chris got hit by something from the stand. So Chris Chadwick got us, helped to get us promoted there. So nice one, Chris, for taking one for the team, literally, on that one.
Yeah.
But sorry, Freddie, I've stopped
I
there.
literally
Carry
remember
on. Yeah.
when that happened, and my dad, we were walking out of the ground. My dad said, "Oh, sorry, mate." So my dad, we were literally walking out the ground, and my dad said, "Don't worry, we'll come back. We'll come back next time and beat them." Because we were 1-0 down at the time. I think Mark Richards scored the first goal, and we weren't very good that day. But yeah, just other games like that. I mean, obviously the Premier League season, the first Premier League season, we went to almost every home game. We bought a season ticket for it, which was a lot of money, but it was completely worth it. Favorite players. I mean, my first ever proper favorite player was obviously Andy Booth when I was old enough to remember the players, but I remember Kevin Gray in the sort of really doldrum days was one of my favourite players because he never used to wear anything apart from a T-shirt to train in whatever weather. I remember going to a game against Colchester in their old ground, and it was like -4, and I was in about 9 layers of clothing, and he still had a T-shirt on. So I think, yeah, things like that really stick out in my memory. Other favourite players, Anthony Pilkington was definitely a favourite. Jordan Rhodes. Scotty Arfield definitely was one of my favourite players just because he was a bit of a lad. I actually saw him once at Festival in the Isle of Wight in about 2013, just like having the time of his life, which was pretty surreal. And yeah, it's just loads of really good memories like that. That I mean, it's obviously harder getting to games than living in London than other people, but we try and get to about 10 to 12 games a season, sort of only like 3 or 4 home games and then sort of 8 to 12 away games. So yeah, just been a diehard fan as you can imagine. I copped a lot of abuse being a London Town fan back in the day when everyone in school was an Arsenal fan because of the Invincibles or Man United.
I'd imagine. So what we'll do is we'll start off the podcast with a message from Will Shaw, which says, I'd be interested to know how you guys are getting on. Are you able to work from home? What's been the effect on your life? Any tips for those of us getting cabin fever? And I think, Freddie, you're probably a good place to start on that one. We'll bring you other guys can jump in as and when. But Freddie, you tell us what you do with Vent. You can tell us what you do, where to find it, and just maybe you could tell us a couple of things on what to do in terms of self-isolating and not being able to have a normal life at the moment.
Yeah, so I started Vent in September 2017. It's an online platform where everyone, but especially men and boys, can open up about their mental health issues, break down stigmas and start conversations. Largely started it for 2 reasons. One, lived experience. So I live with mental health issues myself. I won't go into the whole story because it's all online and you can see it if you want to. And also I just saw there was a paucity of platforms that were out there where everyone, but particularly men, could show vulnerability, express emotions outside of sort of stereotypical archetypes that were normally associated with us, things that sort of that 2-range sort of man, which is either sexual braggadocio or violence. So I wanted to try and sort of put the idea out there that, we are more complex than people might imagine. And we do live with, everyone has their own stories. So yeah, I mean, that's been going on for the last 3 years. It's an online website. It's a podcast as well called the Just Checking In podcast. It's a music night. There's a poetry section, all sorts of stuff you can find. It's www.vent.org.uk. It's on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Vent Help UK, or one word. And then the Just Checking In podcast you can find on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud, and a few others places. But as far as working from home, yeah, it's definitely been something to get adjusted to. For me, my full-time job is on a shift rota pattern, so I still have to adhere to that at home. So what I've done is I've created a little desk space in my house, so I can separate myself mentally when I kind of start work, finish work, and make sure I can get that sort of separation. I'm not working in my room or I'm not working in my kitchen, so I can still enjoy those places and not feel like I'm sort of working 24/7. Obviously, other tips that I'd say are really good to for anyone who's sort of struggling at the moment is try and find some sort of routine or get some sort of routine back. It's something that I definitely struggled to adjust to because a lot of my self-care tools were things that have now been cancelled. So gigs, going to music concerts is a big self-care tool. Obviously, town games, kind of other sports podcasts because all sports have been cancelled. So I've not got as many podcasts to listen to. So for me, getting some sort of structure back and routine back. So if I'm doing a 9 to 5 shift on a certain day, I will spend my lunch break. I'll go for a run, and then that'll be like my one trip outside in the day. Or the next day, I might do like a weight session in my house. I've literally got like 2 dumbbells. I just do a lot of reps on them on different exercises. Just maybe put an hour of your time aside for reading, maybe put an hour of your time just for sitting and literally listening to a podcast. That's what I do a lot of time. Just sit and listen to something, just keep my thoughts distracted. So just making sure you've got a routine, really. I know it's pretty hard for a lot of people, especially if they live in flats and they might have limited space, or they might be living on their own. But to try and find some sort of distraction is a really good tip, I'd say. And also just to try and limit your social media use. I'm pretty prolific on social media because of all the stuff that I do. So I've definitely found that a bit hard. But the sooner you start focusing on things that aren't in your control and you start becoming affected by them, you will start to waste energy on those things that you can't change. And once you realize that you can't change them and all you can do is focus on yourself and your area of concern, then it just makes life a lot easier. So I listen to the news and watch the news at 6 o'clock, and then I sort of get what I need from that, and then that's it for the day.
Yeah, thanks for that, Freddie. Kosi, I'll bring you in here. How are you finding the working from home? 'Cause I'm someone who does it regularly, so it's not a big deal for me. I was furloughed today, sadly for the company, but hopefully things get back to normal as soon as possible on that one. Kosi, how are you finding the whole situation as well? Bringing you in, and Simon Brady join in when you want.
Well, it's funny what Freddie said there, to be honest with you. Exactly everything that I'm doing, and it's working for me. The social media, just surround yourself with positivity. For me, I'm lucky. I've got so many good friends here and in Spain. I've been kind of Skyping them a lot. I've got a new job, and big thanks to Andy here for probably helping me get that, but massively helping out with my CV. That's just come at a perfect time, really, because it's given me a focus. So I'm trying to impress there, do really well and things. But the reality is, I'm finding it really tough. I'm living on my own. I think it really hit home this week. I had my birthday on Tuesday. I'm 96 now. We're waiting for the Queen's telegraph. But no, seriously, no cards, no presents, no humans. It was surreal. It was weird. It was very not good. But then I watch a lot of Spanish television now because I'm trying to learn the language, and I have nothing to be miserable about. It's 10,000 deaths today. They can't even exercise. It is, I just hope we don't ever get to, I know it's a bigger country, but I hope it doesn't get to kind of them proportions in England. But again, on the positives, I'm discovering stuff about myself that I never knew. So don't worry, it's not going to be anything mad. So I went on a 7-mile run today, and that is, for me, honestly, I couldn't even walk to the fridge for the pizza about 3 years ago. Now I do 7-mile runs. Went through Batley, went through Dewsbury, still alive to tell the tale, which is good. But yeah, it's difficult on my own, but I've got such a good friend base and that as well. And God knows what it must be like for people who've not kind of got anyone and stuff like that as well. So, but you know me, guys, sport is my life. I like getting out and about, random stuff. That's all gone. But you've got to think in the bigger picture, haven't you? And it's been frustrating seeing some of these. I mean, I have dipped in social media now and again, but that party in Bradford, 30 people, that guy who's been jailed for a year today, who's, spatting the police and other stupid stories. It's just like, it's as simple as this for me at the moment. If people just carry on doing what they're doing, we're going to be longer, stuck in here. Stop. But like Freddie said, you can't control that. But I suppose rounding it back up really as well, I'm finding it difficult, but really lucky that A, I've got a job that give me something to focus on, and B, good friends, and I'm enjoying my exercise. Cheers, guys.
Cool. I guess I'll jump in there, Matt. Then, so from my point of view, probably a bit of a halfway house between yourself and Kosi, really, in that I typically bookend the week working from home Monday and Friday, and then down in London with Freddie and Graham, not literally, but in those parts midweek. Whereas at the moment, I find myself in my little spare room 5 days a week, which is not too bad on its own, but having to share the house with a girlfriend 24/7 is. Conscious she can't hear that, so that's fine. I guess what's been the real change for me, or where it's hit me hardest, was my grandma sadly passed away probably about 2.5 weeks ago. It wasn't necessarily too big a surprise. She was very frail, very old, 94, and been in a nursing home for about 5 years. But on one hand, we were quite fortunate that we were able to conduct a funeral Monday this week, which was nice. But whereas it would normally been a celebration with various friends and wider family, it was just the six of us, myself, my partner Charlotte, my brother, his girlfriend, and our mum and dad, who are both single children, really. And coming away from there and having to stand 2 meters apart from mum and dad at quite a sad and emotional time, and not being able to give my mum a hug like I wanted to and tell her that everything will be all right was quite very difficult, really. And I guess should be grateful on one hand that we were able to have a funeral. There's lots of people passing away now, and that might not be possible, but at the same time it's made what is a very difficult situation even more difficult, really. So that's the biggest impact on my life. I guess it impacts everyone different, really, but that's something that's been very, very surreal in a very, very surreal world. And even at the build up to that, we weren't sure on the few days before whether or not the funeral would go ahead, etc., etc. So it's put a lot of stuff into perspective, really. But yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's really sorry to hear about that side. That sounds awful. I mean, for me, it's been, well, I work in social media, so I've been quite busy. Obviously, it doesn't compare to anything like that. That's awful. Yeah, for me, I live in Leeds with my partner, and that's been quite nice to have that interaction. I've actually quite enjoyed working from home, and I've probably been more sociable than I was, to be honest, because there's these apps like House Party, and it gives me an excuse to call people I've not spoken to in a while. And I think like small things like listening to the radio, that's been a big thing for me. It just feels nice to know that everyone's going through it. I know as bad as, and there is some tough times, and obviously it's tough for other people, but I think, just kind of getting in touch and making that effort. I do like social contact and like to speak to people and chat to people, hence why I do this. But yeah, it's tough for other people. I mean, my partner's just unfortunately been furloughed today as well, so it's a tough time for people. I mean, touch wood, I'm keeping busy and being able to do stuff. But I suppose like some of the guys were saying, like listening to podcasts, doing stuff, and having social contact, because that's really important. And just checking in with people and checking they're okay, especially in tough times like this, is what you need to do, really.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo quite a few of the points that Freddie and Brady made. I've been keeping in contact with a lot of people that I've not maybe spoken to in a while, which is quite nice. I'm able to work from home properly, so that's quite good at the same time. But yeah, I think for the first couple of weeks it was quite difficult because I wasn't forcing myself to have that routine. But once I've made myself get into that routine, it's been a lot better. And I think one thing that's been big for me is trying to avoid all the coronavirus stuff and picking out one point during the day where I'm going to have a look at all the news and catch up on everything, and then just kind of trying to block it out for the rest of the day, which is a lot easier when you're working throughout the day. But yeah, I think you can get consumed by it, and if you're checking it every 20 minutes to see the latest death stats and all that kind of stuff, it can be a bit troubling.
Yeah, I think one of the things as well, Freddie, you might say as well, is all the notifications that you get on your mobile phone as well. Every 5 minutes, Sky News, BBC, Guardian, whoever you follow, it's all coming up, isn't it, with death tolls. And on one hand, it's very serious, but on the other hand, it's important to not let that get on top of you, and to keep doing the right things and follow the government advice as well.
Yeah, exactly. I would just echo what everyone said. The important thing, we talk. I think for me, it's about what you can control, and for my mental health, if I'm not in control of something, is when it starts to maybe affect me. But if I'm concentrating on things that I know I won't be able to impact, so we might all be frustrated at the fact that there aren't enough testing being done, or there's not enough protective equipment being given to the NHS, and all those sort of issues that are valid and legitimate. But we can't change any of that, and we can all be worried, and we can all check in on the people that we know or loved ones who work in the NHS, but we can't change it. So I think you're obviously right to be worried, but we can't let that get on top of us, and we can't let that sort of cripple us when it comes to doing our everyday lives. So as long as we follow the advice, as long as we stick to the rules, and as long as we kind of behave like decent human beings as well, everyone will have seen the stuff about panic buying, and it happened in my area, and everyone would have seen the stuff about what Kosi said about NHS staff getting or police officers in that case being assaulted. I've seen stories on social media about NHS staff being sort of having to be forced to not wear their uniforms in public because people might steal their IDs to get into supermarkets early. Like all this sort of trash behaviour. As long as we are decent human beings and we check in with the people that we love and we do the best that we can, then that's all we can really do, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll echo that, and across football as well, Kosi, we've seen that there's sort of like moral and ethics.
It's turning nasty, mate. Isn't it? It's turning nasty. There's a real divide. I mean, there was anyway. I think between kind of non-football people and the top level, as we obviously saw now 2 years in the Premier League. But I think it's getting a bit nasty, really. And I don't know if it's a debate for this, but it's people are demanding people get the wage cuts. But it was just why should footballers be the easy target? Well, why can't Boris Johnson take a wage cut? I mean, where do you draw the line? It's I've seen a lot of people screaming at town players for not taking a wage cut, even though obviously the furloughs come in with the office staff and obviously the directors are not kind of getting a wage for is it 3 months or 1 month or something? But it'll be interesting to see where it all ends. But I just don't like demand. I get what people are saying, footballers are rich, blah blah blah, but I don't like people demanding that people should do this, that, and the other. It's nothing to do with people, in my opinion. But it'd be nice. But I think the trouble is Daniel Levy came out with that. Well, it leaked out, didn't it? What have you? The press release from Spurs, and then it's kind of escalated. The last 2-3 days have been pretty wild, pretty savage, haven't they? Between like journos, to your normal person, and kind of footballers are really getting it at the moment. I don't know what other guys have got opinion on.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is Kosi is I think I heard it firsthand. Matt Hancock in his press statement this evening has made reference to Premier League footballers and what he thinks they should do. And I kind of don't quote me this because I haven't listened to it, and it's just something I've seen flash up on social media. But I think echoes the point you were trying to make, really, that everyone's seemingly got an opinion on it, and it's only going to escalate and snowball from here, really, until each club has made their own individual decision.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a nuanced one for me, guys. For me, League One and League Two footballers aren't getting paid a lot of money. They might be getting paid. Top earners might be getting paid max $5,000 a week. Now, comparatively to Premier League footballers, that's if you ask them to take a 70% wage cut, that's livelihood we're talking about. That's mortgages. But top Premier League footballers are obviously on millions more money. Now, for me, what I disagree with is that football clubs, and this is especially happening in rugby, although that's a different podcast, some clubs are unilaterally reducing wages of players without consulting them. And it might be that they're using coronavirus as an excuse to reduce wages rather than saying, look, we need to cut this amount to survive as a club. Would you be able to take this reduction? Now, it has to be a unified approach within that club. If the top bosses say, we are going to take X amount of our own wages off, you can take X amount, and that will help pay for the backroom staff, the tea lady, the kit man, then that for me is the right approach. I don't agree with clubs unilaterally reducing, players' wages by 60%, 30%, whatever it is. But at the same time, I also kind of do expect the top earner players to, do the morally right thing if it means that their tea lady or their kit man or the event staff or hospitality staff are going to lose their jobs if they don't do it, if that makes sense.
For me, I'd like to see a bit more from the PFA from me. The only thing we've seen so far is the PFA have told, apparently, that I've seen that they've told players not to take a cut. But what I'd like to see is the PFA come out with a firm stance, maybe, and come up with a plan for me, because
you're going to be waiting forever, Matt. It's the PFA, yeah.
Feels like it, doesn't it? But I would prefer them as the governing, as I see them as a governing body.
Don't hold your breath on the PFA.
No, but you would like to think that they would have enough about them to come out and say, right, these will take X, these will take X, these will take X, and have more joint thinking. I don't know what you think of this, Andy. We'll bring you in. But
I've got a question for you, Andy, as well, just to kind of bolt it onto that as well. What it sits uneasy with me, the furlough scheme being used by football clubs, but I've been kind of thinking about it when I were on my run today, thinking, well, hang on a minute, why should they just be able to use it like anyone else? But it just sits uneasy with me that that we are. I don't know what your views are on it.
Completely the same. It just doesn't feel right. But they're a business, so they've got to be able to to have access to it. There's a few bigger things for me on this one. A lot of clubs will talk about their values and talk about, putting the team themselves. This is an opportunity for me for them to be able to do that and do the right thing for the community around them and the people that are part of their club. So there's that. I also know that I used to underwrite mortgages a long time ago for a bank, and my role was to assess mortgage applications that fell outside the bank's normal lending policy. So we got a lot of footballers. Now the money wasn't sloshing around like it is now. 20 years ago, it was really at the beginning of the Premier League. But one of the things is that when you've got money to spend, you will spend it. So just because somebody's on 30 grand a week doesn't mean to say they've got 29.5 grand getting stuck in a savings account somewhere. A lot of these guys get money and spend money, and I think there's going to be a lot of resistance to them altering their lifestyle, because one of the things that's come out of all the debacle at Town, I think, is they're really cosseted people who have people around them telling them what they want to hear, and I think there'll be a big push against this because I don't think they live in the real world. They should, but they don't, and that's sad for me. But I it just sticks in my craw a bit, particularly Premier League, if they're using furlough money that could be sent elsewhere. I get nothing from the don't get me on a rant here. The government give me nothing. My self-employed status, the way that I pay myself, means that I'm one of that 5%. I can't go out and earn money because I've got asthma, so I'm stuck in my house, unable to earn money apart from doing things virtually. And you get all these other guys who've got the cosseted lifestyle who will not feed money back into the economy like they should. So there's a lot of things to be thought about from that perspective for me.
Graham, what did you think of the statement from Mark Devlin this lunchtime, mate?
Yeah, overall I thought it was the right call. I think wider it's a bit of a, like you say, it's a big issue. My main issue goes bigger than that sort of stuff. My main issue is with the sort of companies that are trying to take advantage of this furlough scheme. Like we got told at work today that apparently EasyJet have paid out something like 150 million worth of dividends, and then they're also going into the furlough scheme at the same time. So, I think as much as the government can do on these issues, you can't stop businesses operating how they're going to operate. If they're going to operate in an immoral way, you can't really stop them, because you're always going to get companies trying to take advantage of these situations, which is a sad thing. But yeah.
Brady, what's your thoughts, mate, on the whole situation? I think the thing is with Town, I think because we've had 2 seasons in the Premier League, I think a lot of people feel we're swimming around with money, and while I think we may be in a better position than so a lot of other clubs, I'm not sure it's people are entirely hitting the button with that.
No, I think it's tricky, isn't it? Because like some of the other guys have alluded, like there's no, it's different for every club, and some people take advantage, some people, but like, I think what kind of, and some of the guys have touched on this as well, I don't like how it's like on the players, like, oh, well, the players should have to do this. The players should, they earn a lot of money, so it's up to them to do it. I think, the decision should be put to them. Like Freddie was saying with rugby, like you kind of like, here's what we're doing. You guys can do this. It's up to you. And then the players can decide that way. But I don't like how it's calls for, like, if we take like, I'm trying to think who the highest earners at our club are, but if the onus isn't on them to make the decision themselves, I think it's tricky. Whereas I think having a meeting and discussing and putting forward a proposal is better.
This is why I said, Brady, I'd like to see more from the PFA, to lead those negotiations. Really, that's what I'd like to see, and I'm on the same path as you, 100%. Yeah.
Brady, in the Spanish league, there's a rule that it doesn't matter what the players think. 50% cuts across the board. I can't remember its exact technical term. So while here we're having this debate, should they take a cut or what have you? In Spain, even Atletico Madrid have done it, Barcelona have done it, and the players can do nothing about it. I don't know if you saw this week, but I think Barcelona were going to top up the 30%, all the players, and it was Messi kind of announced, not the club, which was a bit of a strange one, but it takes it out of their hands. It's getting a bit of a messy one here, isn't it, in England, where it's up to individual clubs and stuff to make this call, and we're caught in the crossfire as well as a Town, as a club.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's tricky. I mean, I was actually having this debate about finishing the season, but it's kind of relevant as well, and I think like we say, we don't have much faith in the PFA or the EFL. But I almost think it's tricky because on one hand, you can argue, do the same as Spain and like make a decision and be like, this is what we're going to do. This is it. It's the same for everyone. But the thing is, and I'm sure we've talked about it on the radio before, like they have so much time. Like it doesn't look like football's going to resume at the end of April. So I'd rather, a decision they make today or this week could be the wrong decision in a week's time. So not that I'm trying to stick up for the for the EFL or the PFA, but it is tricky. Like I still don't think of all the decisions I've heard for ending the season, I still don't think there's one that suits everyone, and there won't be ultimately.
Well, we can move on to that if you like, if nobody else has anything to add on it.
I'll shoot first if you don't mind. So I think it was just on the timing of the announcement. I think Huddersfield is probably one of the clubs that have moved first, if you like. Obviously, the Spurs, the Newcastles, Leeds United, etc. have all come out in statements. But Huddersfield are still probably one of the first clubs to state their position, if you like, and where they're at. And I guess just coming back to some things we discussed, there's not a right answer to this, but I'm not sure that's helped them in this instance. It's caused a lot of backlash when actually if they were to state something maybe at the start of next week, even tomorrow perhaps, when a few more clubs have announced their position, that the backlash maybe wouldn't have been as it would have been, presuming a lot of other clubs do similar, or actually had other clubs done different, then it might have shaped a bit more what Huddersfield did. So applaud them in one sense for kind of coming out and making a position, but just wonder perhaps we wouldn't have seen the backlash that we have seen had other clubs and what have you kind of made their announcement first.
Go, Freddie.
Yeah, I just have one final point. I think I'd echo what everyone said, and I think for me the focus has to be more on the owners, because what certain club owners have done is they've now taken taxpayers' money to take away to sort of make sure that staff either don't get they don't get 100% of their earnings. So therefore, it's then put the pressure on the players, which I agree with everyone is unfair. So the interesting thing for me is, I actually agreed with the statement that came out today. I thought it was a really well judged move, and the financial hit from some of those board members can't have been, small change. So I think it was actually a really welcome move. I think I'd rather see them for me, I'd rather see them do it early than too late, if that makes sense, because if they do it too late, then there might be even a bigger backlash saying, why didn't you do this early and protect the admin staff salaries? So for me, I'd rather have them done it sort of too soon than too late, when people's financial situations might be a bit worse.
Just one from me, Matt. I've heard from a very, very good source. We keep in Leeds have done this and that. Leeds and Birmingham, well, they were talking in the press, but I've heard that they've not done any deferral. And I think a sound gauging board would be their Twitter feed. They're all over it out. They're giving it out and what have you. So I'm sure we'd have heard about it on their Twitter feed if they'd have done it. So I think that's just talk. So I think Town, like you said, there, Freddie, should be applauded for coming out in the statement. But as soon as it came out on Twitter, I didn't look underneath at the comments, but I can imagine what they are and that as well. I think you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, really, on this one.
And as the guys pop off to clap the NHS care workers, I think this will be a good moment to stop this week's podcast, and we'll split this one into two parts, and we'll be back in a couple of days with the second part. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll release the second part quite soon.
Late in May in 2017, Schindler scored. It was a heaven dream. What a feeling, what a night. Oh, what a night. Wagner singing, we are Premier League. The greatest sight, St. George's Square to see. What an evening, what a night. Oh, I got a funny feeling when he walks and a fence, and then the commentator yelled he takes that chance. Oh, what a night. Lost so safe and mesmerizing me. Low charge and flattened all Chelsea. Stamford Bridge, oh what a night. ends, and then the commentator yelled, he takes a chance. Oh, what a night. Oh,